I think I'm allowed to start now. It's 1:15. It's always a very difficult job to put all the attentions together just after the lunch. And I hope we will be able to do that. I have very strong panelists. Each of them are very important in their sectors and areas. So thanks for being with us, and thanks to my panelists as well for accepting to be with us here today. I'd like to introduce them to you first. On my left, Mr. Alvaro Ortiz is the head of Big Data Analysis and Chief Economist, Turkey BBVA Research. And then I have Murat Özdemir, who is the chairman of the board and executive committee of FIBA Group. Next to Murat, I have Ebru Özdemir, who is the chairperson of Limak Investments. And then I have Korkut Öztürkmen, who is the head of energy group at IC Holding. And finally, I have Yousif Ali, executive director of Masdar Clean Energy. As you know, our session is on record, and we have tweets using the AC Istanbul and EBRD. So I appreciate if you tweet it so that it gets the full media cover. Although I have prepared a couple of questions, of course, I want my panelists to be free to comment on their area, which would be benefit for the, this event. And I want it to be actually very interactive in a Davos style, that if any of my panelists have any additional view, you can simply jump in and make your comment, which make it very interactive and lively. In the morning part, you have heard from our authorities and authorities of the region how the market is evolving, both on the energy market side as well as in the renewable energy side. With the increased importance of climate change, green economy, the importance of renewable energy is increasing and is now the most important agenda item in each of the countries' policies, which is actually very good news for us. You know, as EBRD, we are the one who always want to push for the green energy and renewables and increase the share of the renewable in the total market so that it helps with the climate impact. And I have actually my panelists who are important players also in the renewable energy market in that respect. But before we get into individual renewable energy areas, I'd like to start with Alvaro by asking his view on how he sees the market right now, both in Turkey, also in the region, and especially compared with the global trends, because I see that there is, especially in the last 2 years, a very big transition, both in terms of the electricity prices as well as the investment cost. And there are a number of changes happening in parallel with each other, which is very difficult to follow, by the way. And the markets are, and the players of the market are trying to adapt themselves. So can we get your views on this, Alvaro?
Okay, thank you very much to the EBRD and the Atlantic Council to let me to express our views. As you know, we were pioneering the investment in renewables, not only in Turkey, but in the rest of our footprint countries. What we know now is that we were in the right direction. What is happening and this huge appetite for this market will reinforce our position. So at the bank, what we think is that there is no plan B for climate change, unfortunately, and we have only to deliver. So this is the only we have to do. Beyond that, we think that there is a big opportunity for the banking system and for the financial system, especially those in Europe, which are now with narrowing margins and so on. And there are several issues or drivers because of that. The first, it is that the starting point is still very low, so the financial needs for sustainability are still quite huge in the world and also in Turkey. If we talk about the world, we still need 5 to 7 billion per dollars per year to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. So everybody will have to put some effort, some things on the table to achieve this, because as I mentioned, there is no plan B for this, and everything is getting serious on climate change. In Turkey, as the Deputy Prime Minister has shown this morning, has been a huge effort. But we are still far from the targets initially targeted for 2023, and we still need investment growth rates of near 2 digits for the coming years, not only in wind, but in others. Unfortunately, the macroeconomic environment was not precisely good to do that during the last 2 years. I have to tell you that my work, I'm macroeconomist, is to track the economy. The latest data what we have is that the economy is growing at 5%, that the first quarter we will continue to do that, and now the things will turn much more appropriate to continue to the investment in renewable and in other fields. Beyond that, there is a strong appetite that was mentioned this morning for renewable energy in the world. This is becoming a very crucial issue for the society, for the corporate, and this is putting pressure also in the politicians. So this has become an issue we will be at the top of the agendas, and this will facilitate a lot of the things. I mean, the environment for invest in the sector. There is also, not only because of social pressure, there is economic reason for that. The demand for renewable and sustainable energy will grow because the relative prices will continue to decrease. Later I can mention about Turkey, but Turkey is not an exception. This is something that is going to happen. It is, and the recent tenders in coal and also in wind show this difference. There is also, last but not least, there is also a sustainability issue in Turkey beyond the climate sustainability. It is the huge dependence of energy of the country. As you know, one of the Achilles heels of this economy was the huge current account deficit, and all we know that the demand of energy was one of the main factors. So, by investment in renewables, we are also reducing the macro vulnerability of the country. So this is time to do it, and the environment, from the macro point of view, I can tell you that it is much, much more favorable from all of these aspects. In terms of the prices, I think the trend will be very similar. The relative price of renewables relative to other alternatives like coal will continue to decrease. And this is Turkey will not be an exception. What is happening in Turkey, in a special situation, there is some sort of oversupply, and this will open a very interesting opportunity windows. For 2 or 3 years, we will not have pressure to satisfy demand, to design a strategy for the future and to work on these aspects. I think we can contribute all to design the better and the more efficient price mechanism for that. On the climate for investors, what do we need? This is no more different than for the rest of investment. So what we need is a friendly market environment, and that means to assure the investor, foreign and local, that they will not face a costly and lengthy bureaucratic obstacles for that. The investor and everybody needs predictability, so let's work on these new rules, of these mechanisms, and assure that the mechanism is sustainable, that is, it will long-lasting. And the third one is to assure the long-term to financing. So this is, I think that, and for this, what we need is a price mechanism which is sustainable, that satisfies the demand side, the supply side, and the financial side.
Thank you very much, Alvaro. Yes, actually, in order the projects to be feasible and financeable, it's very important that the pricing mechanism is to be sustainable and somehow foreseeable, in order to get the long-term financing. But from investor point of view, we have Murat here, and actually, we know FIBA, especially focusing on the wind energy side of the renewables, and you have a very sizable wind portfolio at the moment. As FINA Energy, from your point of view, how would you view your investments in the wind, especially from return perspective, and why especially wind but not others? Maybe as an investor, if you can elaborate on that for us.
Well, thank you very much to Atlantic Council and EBRD for this very timely and very valuable conference. The investor perspective, actually, our Deputy Minister, Mr. Bayraktar, has summarized the feed-in tariffs perception 10 years ago versus today in a very precise way. But interestingly, we have one project, for example, that has already left the scheme, so meaning it's 11 years old. Therefore, I can really compare ones that were 11 years ago, we had developed, some about 7-8 years ago, some 2-3 years ago, and another bunch coming in this year. All of the dynamics have been in favor of equity investors, I must say. One, the equipment prices have gone down. Two, the ratio of producing in Turkey, the equipment has gone up. Hence, in every project that came after the other, we were able to enjoy better feed and tariff mechanisms because of the local content aspect. Three, we had of course, the know-how of building, and also with respect to having bigger equipment in terms of megawatt power, the construction cost component has gone down significantly when you look at it from a per megawatt basis. And last but not least, of course, financing options and the importance of renewables in the world have increased. So despite some kind of turmoils that happened in Turkey, I must say, we were able to get financing into our projects regardless of the macro environment. So I must say that as an investor, between year 0 till today, which is about 10-11 years that we've been developing, all of the parameters of our financial model has improved. The key is what is next, because first of all, we had already developed most of the better sites in Turkey that have easier access, that have better wind potential. And of course, with respect to the end of this year, we will introduce a new FIT as Deputy Minister Bayraktar had informed us. Not the details yet, but we hope to find that out soon. But that's key there. But in general, I must say that Turkey still has a huge potential. We have one of the best wind corridors in the world, with a lot of landscape availability and a very good mechanism and functioning market mechanism that's behind the whole industry. Therefore, it really has been a good ride for us. The reason we developed wind is mainly because of all the factors I mentioned. All of the wind that's coming behind our wind story was strong. It was the right area because of the well-functioning market, because of the well-functioning FIT system, because of the positive spirit around the subject itself, and also with respect to the financing availability that was out there. So It's been a very good ride, I must say.
Okay.
It's been a very good, and we still are going to be almost doubling this year what we had done in the past 10 years.
I see. Of course, I mean, hearing local content side is not something which we are so much favor, but in general, I think in the wind, having the feed-in tariff helped a lot for the development of such a big portfolio in the Turkish market, and you become a very important player.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Murat. Ebru, my next question would be to you, and actually you are the player of the hydro side of the renewable, and actually hydro energy is even more challenging compared with the other renewable energies due to climate change impacts and everything. And you have a very large hydro portfolio distributed various in the Turkey. Sometimes Turkey hydrology, of course, is getting through a severe times and cyclicality. So from your point of view, how do you expect going forward the climate risk poses, whether the climate risk poses a challenge in the hydro investments going forward, and your views on that?
Thank you. Thank you for the question, challenging question, and thank you to Atlantic Council and EBRD for inviting me to the panel. And of course, we are jealous of FINA's wind portfolio, having so many hydropower plants. They really created a wonderful wind portfolio, and we have none so far, but waiting for the new feed-in tariff so that we may invest in wind as well, because this is the only power that we don't have in our portfolio. And before I start, I have to mention about women in energy again. This is my responsibility, so I'll take 30 seconds on that. You know, in energy, the least number of women is in the energy sector. We are like 16% of the whole sector, and it's very much male-denominated, but I'm very happy to see at least a woman colleague of mine as a moderator. But in all these panels, we hope to reach a 50-50 participation also in the panels. So I'd like to take this to the attention of all the industry, the financiers, or the investors before I start. Yes, everybody is talking about the climate change right now. This is the hottest topic everywhere. We've seen Australia, you know, a country like Korea is just all the forest in the size of a Korea has been gone and so forth. And currently we have 1,400 megawatts with our partners in Turkey, as you said, in all over Turkey. Regarding the precipitation rates, we haven't seen any change so far. Yes, we had challenging years where there was no water or there was no snow, but in average, if you compare to the years before, there's not change yet. But what we have seen is the patterns of the rain or the snow has been changed. We started to receive stronger rains, or the regions or the dates has been changed. Dates of the rainy seasons has been changed, or where we receive the rain has been changed. So now, hopefully, I mean, we have all the investments done, and we have 2 more coming, and we'll be in the feed-in tariff, the first feed-in tariff year. So everything will be in operational, hopefully, and we hope that the climate will not change till we have our debt services to the banks as well. But we think that the hydropower plants with reservoirs will be helpful in actually managing the energy optimization, which is actually what we have been under discussion in the renewables, in the technical and economical side. And also, I think all these reservoirs will be very helpful in managing the destructive forces of this strong and sudden rains, torrential rains that happens. So we think that there will be still some room for more hydropower plant investments in these additional senses as well. And I also believe that all the countries should definitely be able to use their own current and what they have are their natural power resources, so that our dependency for other resources of energy, where we have to import and where we don't know what the price of it in the coming years. So we have to realize our all wind potential if we are in the wind corridor, all our hydro potential if we have these resources, and all our solar and geothermal potential as well. And yes, we are afraid of the climate change. Yes, the numbers shows that world is really getting hotter, but we expect 2.5 to 5 degrees of increase in the temperature in the next century. So, and we believe in the decarbonization. This is what we are talking about. We have to be carbon neutral as well. But currently, we are very happy about our hydropower investments as well, and hope that it will also help in the senses that the energy optimization and the rain control as well.
Thank you, Ebru. Yeah, I think reservoirs save the world in a way in this case, right? From floods and also in the circularity of the hydro projects. Coming to Korkut, and actually IC Energy is also a hydro player as well as electricity distribution company owner. And now we are seeing IC Energy more in the market for new projects and the acquisition of new projects, and maybe IC will become one of the important players for the consolidation of the market. Korkut, may I get your view on how you see the M&A opportunities in the Turkish market, especially in the renewable side next year, and do you really see the consolidation of the market coming?
Thank you very much, Şule. First of all, I would like to thank you to the organizers from Atlantic Council, inviting myself to take part in this conference as well. Actually, yes, although we have a good portfolio of hydropower plants in the amount of 400 megawatt capacity so far, starting last year with the partnership of EBRD, we have founded a new company which is called IC Sustainable Energy, and we created a new strategy to invest in the renewables sector aggressively, including solar, wind, battery, and similar technologies supporting the renewable sector. And we are heavily looking at both greenfield projects and also brownfield and operating assets. If you are asking my experience so far in the last year or so, because of the uncertainty that we have in the new feed-in tariff mechanism, which will be announced hopefully by the Minister of Energy, there is a mismatch between the buyers and sellers in terms of the valuation of the assets. The sellers or the asset owners who are enjoying the good high feed-in tariff mechanism, which is 7.3 cents per kilowatt hour and 13.3 cents per kilowatt hour for solar, they think that they have a very valuable asset and they are overvaluing their asset when they are approached with a proposal to acquire it. On the other side, the sellers, of course, have to also analyze the unpredictability of the market, especially the period after the post-feed-in tariff. So, unfortunately, I mean, so far, I've also checked the Deloitte M&A report of 2019 before I come here. I've seen only 24 deals realized last year in the energy sector. Still 50 to 60 of those deals were in the renewable energy sector, which is good. But when I go through the disclosed M&A deal values, I saw only $120 million. And $100 million is already ours with EBRD. So this is not, this is rather a low figure. And In order to speed up, this M&A transaction world, of course, the uncertainty related with the feed-in tariff has to be resolved as soon as possible. But of course, I have to also comment about, I'm not that pessimistic still, because next year, or starting with mid of this year, I expect to see higher number of M&A deals for the renewable projects, because most probably after especially the announcement of the new feed-in tariff, the existing owners who are enjoying the high figures will think to monetize their assets more and more, and seeing, of course, the lower value, the new value. And on the other side, the ones who have already expired the PPAs and who does not want to take the market risk owning a wind and solar project will be also encouraged to divest their assets. With these reasoning, my expectation that we will see higher number of M&A deals ongoing. As you might know, there are a couple of serious deals still on the market due to this reason. They want to divest their big size of portfolios because of because they have come to the end of their feed-in tariff PPAs. But if you ask me, we should really concentrate on the greenfield assets rather than the M&A deals for the renewable sector. Because I see that in the last year, there has been a stagnation in terms of developing new greenfield projects. We need to prepare the necessary environment, necessary investment environment to speed up the investing into the greenfield potential in the renewable side. If we want to really achieve our 24,000 megawatts target, this is the additional capacity based on the International Energy Agency report, which we expect to be realized until 2024, we should not be losing time. We need to actually increase the predictability of the market. We need to rearrange the market, especially for post-feed-in tariff contracts, to access long-term PPAs by the private sector for the renewable projects. And we should also encourage the right financing resources to be more abundant for the Turkish market. When it comes to consolidation, consolidation is a problem, has been a problem for Turkish power market since the beginning. Actually, when you look at the market situation as of today, there are still many small investors lacking the required size for a sustainable business case, both in terms of technology, governance, and financing. Small size also eliminates the strength for resilience, which is needed especially for our country and for our market. I remember when the energy market law was launched in the year 2000, if you read the, through the lines, you will see that the market structure was really designed for at least to have 5, 6, or 7 big utility companies in the market. The policymakers at that time were thinking to have strong energy companies who have the capacity to finance, invest in new capacity, and also absorb the volatility of the market. But as of today, I mean, as our minister in the morning session already underlined that, in the last 2 or 3 years, we are having, especially for the projects who are not protected with the feed-in tariff, we are going through very tough times. I mean, for the CCGTs, even for the lignite power plants, and other power plants who are not enjoying feed-in tariff, could not actually earn the minimum cash flow which is required to pay back their debt service. So market forces, this means, this already shows that market forces are now heavily putting pressure on the small players to consolidate. And we will continue to see this to increase. And therefore, I mean, I hope together with our partnership with EBRD, we can play a greater role and part in the years to come.
Thank you very much, Korkut. Still, there are going to be a number of challenges as far as I see in the consolidation because of the gap between the buyers and sellers, but let's see how it will evolve. Now I'm turning to Yousif. And actually, you are, as far as I understand, you won a pilot solar project in Uzbekistan with the new record low price for the whole Central Asia. How does Masdar see potential for the reduction of the prices? And what are the main drivers for this decrease in the pricing?
Thank you for inviting me for this interesting event. Let me first give you a brief about what we are doing in Masdar. So Masdar is a state-owned company that works in the development of clean energy projects. So today we have gross capacity of around 5,000 megawatt across the globe. So we have projects in the United States, in UK, and in the EU countries, in Balkan, Middle East, and Central Asia, and Australia, and Indonesia. So we have a diverse portfolio of projects that consist of wind projects, offshore wind, solar PV, solar thermal, and projects like waste-to-energy projects. So we successfully have today 2 waste-to-energy projects under constructions in UAE and in Australia. So we have a diverse portfolio. We are in the market since 13 years. Over the last few years, we bid successfully for different projects where we're able to always to have a world record number. I would say having a world record number is not because of Masdar is a unique company, but because of the prices of renewable energy are going down. So in any major tender bid for renewable energy projects, you will always observe new numbers. So recently we heard about a breaking record number in Dubai. We were talking, I think the number was just below 1.7 cents per kilowatt hour. So talking about Uzbekistan, Masdar as a company have a history and experience in Uzbekistan. My first visit to Uzbekistan was in 2008. We worked with the government of Uzbekistan on the development of a greenhouse reduction project under the Clean Development Mechanism. This was our first experience in the country. So the country have a very efficient system when it comes to execution of projects. So as a company, we felt very comfortable in operating in Uzbekistan. Talking about the solar project for us, Central Asia in general is a strategic market for us. It's a new market where we can have many opportunities. For each bid, and specifically for the Uzbekistan, we give a lot of attention to the technical side of the project. So designing the technicality side, having the optimum design and generation is a key thing for us in all our projects. So we give it a lot of attention. The second thing to highlight, we believe the transaction advisor, IFC, did a great job in general in structuring the project and having all the bankable documents and in liaising between us as investors, bidders, and the government, and having the right structure. I think this itself played an important role to have a bankable deal in front of us. So working on the technical side, working on the bankability and having comfort about the legal structure of the project. And in addition to that, also with the support of the DFIs and particularly IFC in that transaction, we got the support in the financing, which made it eventually possible for us to achieve such a low record. I think more or less in the different countries in Central Asia, so this is the price, the price of electricity, solar PV, for example, and wind today is not at grid parity. I would say it's below grid parity. So we are reaching a new era in renewable energy. So we are talking it's a fact that solar energy, for example, in the places where I come from and many other places, solar energy is becoming cheaper than subsidized conventional energy. So even with projects with subsidies, solar can be much cheaper. So the challenge for us in the renewable energy community today is to think about how to reach grid parity and how to beat grid parity while we are able to provide dispatchable energies. So two angles that we are focusing on in our company to provide us a competitive edge in the next few years. Storage for us, it's about the batteries, where we've seen a lot of improvements in the cost of batteries. Besides that, we are also exploring other integration of technologies that can allow us to provide dispatchable source of energy at competitive price. We announced recently our success in Morocco, where we are providing a hybrid solution of photovoltaic together with thermal storage with a price of around 6.7 cents per kilowatt hour for dispatchable energy in Morocco. In general, going back to Uzbekistan, we're very glad to be the lowest bidder for Uzbekistan. We're very glad to develop this solar project and get it soon to financial close in the next few months. In parallel, we are also developing other projects in Uzbekistan, the wind projects, where we'll also think that we'll be able to provide very attractive price for the government of Uzbekistan. We are very glad and happy with the cooperation and the support we are getting from our partners in Uzbekistan, in Azerbaijan, and in other countries.
Thank you very much. And actually, you are giving us the picture of the future, and the future of the renewable energy comes together with this dispatchable energy production solutions, and battery and storage will be really key for our future, for the sustainable energy. Looking at the time, we have like 20 minutes left, and it would be good if we leave like 7 minutes for the questions as well. So I'll ask you one round of questions again, but I would like you to keep it really short so that we can manage the time. My first question again to Alvaro. We know that Turkish banks work very closely with the ministry in order to to give some ideas about how the new scheme, support scheme after 2020 should be. And there were also rumors that new feed-in tariff will be actually Turkish lira, not hard currency anymore. Can you give us some views from a Turkish banking point of view. How do you see this? Although we couldn't get really the full picture yet from our dear minister.
Well, of course, I'm not going to comment on rumors. If you want, you can ask the Deputy Prime Minister what he will decide. But I'm telling you what we think about how the new price mechanism should be. From the economic point of view, it should maximize the utility of all of the actors involved in the operation, and this is first the users, the producers, the investor, local and also foreign, and also the banking sector. And beyond that, it has to adapt to the new circumstances with these lower relative prices, an expected increase in demand not only by locals but also by foreigners. So foreigners investors will continue to be very key, especially in the big operation. In the actual or in the former scheme, things work relatively well. Both investor and banks were comfortable, and from the user point of view, they even with the system, they pay even less than the alternative option that was to use coal. According to our analysis, the key element in the price will be the capacity and also the investment cost, even more than the interest rate. So every price mechanism that increase capacity and reduce investment costs will be maximizing the utility for everybody. Here, technology will be very important. The government, it is now considering, according to you, or according to rumors, to use the lira in the mechanism. First, we perfectly understand this. I'm a macroeconomist, not an expert in energy, but I was one of the first who advocate of the risk of the currency mismatch for this country even before the crisis. So from this point of view, we perfectly understand this. We were also in another emerging market countries, we suffered this exposure, and we are really at BBVA aware of this system. But however, since the lira mechanism will reduce the currency mismatch, it will have also another side effect. First, the foreign investment appetite could be affected with the new mechanism. And the cost could increase because the relevant interest rate will be the local, and so far the local interest rate are much higher than the international ones. The proposals that we discuss are several and are very different mechanisms that could be attended to maximize the welfare of the system. One proposal that we did, for example, is that we can change the currencies. For example, most of the materials are manufactured in Europe, so it makes sense to change to euros. The contrast, or some basket, in euro-dollar. On the local operations, we propose to introduce some indexation to the Turkish lira, also to protect the agents. We introduce also the need for a hedge during the construction period. And there are other possibilities that have nothing to do with the currencies, but to increase the lengthening of the maturity, so going beyond the actual 10 years, that it can mitigate the cost to go to the system in liras. In this sense, what we need is a comprehensive approach that maximizes the welfare of the country, which is the user, investors, producers, and this will maximize for everybody.
Thank you. And actually now looking at Murat, how do you see the market after 2020? And we have heard today that there will be mini YEKAs going forward. So will YEKAs will be the way forward for the market? And whether, as an investor, do you think that would be giving you the right fit for the investment, your investment strategies?
Yes, I mean, regarding post-2020, I can summarize it as time of sacrifices for everyone. We will all have to sit together and see where we are in terms of how we're going to finance in the long term with TL, if that's really going to be TL. How outside of Turkey investors will be able to, because they track their returns in dollars or euros or the different currencies that they have. Therefore, we will have to find hedging mechanisms for doing so. We will go to our equipment manufacturers and ask them to make sacrifice as well, because we will need to have our power plants as less costly as possible, capex-wise. I'm expecting some consolidation. I think efficiency will be important. There will be much less room for mistake. Therefore, the projects must be good. I think that projects below a certain capacity factors may be more difficult to pursue, as the bigger part of the cake will be for the banks now. As the prices go down, equity returns will be the first ones to be hit. Therefore, the bigger share will be going to the banks. I think we can see certain different layers of credit or equity products, some different layers of financing, maybe some green bonds, maybe some IPOs. So a lot of things will happen, but it has to happen with all of us, the equipment manufacturers, the developers, the investors, and the banks, all sitting around the same table, trying to find the solution. But one thing that we will for sure have to seek is the macro. So in this situation, the macro should allow us to make this happen, because it's not dollar denominated anymore, if that's the case. Therefore, the macro environment allowing us to do long-term Turkish lira financing and the long-term view, and also investors with lower equity expectations from outside of Turkey will be much needed. Therefore, in a world after 2020, the macro environment will be more important than it used to be with the past US dollar-based FIT system. For example, last 1.5 years ago, a year ago, when the interest rates were up 20%, I mean, it wouldn't have been able to do any investments with Turkish lira financing with those rates. Therefore, the rates have to be below 10, and it has to be single digit for sure, and long-term availability. So it will be a tough adjustment, but we will all, I'm sure we will find a solution. The wind is here, the corridor is here, the appetite is here, the momentum is here. So therefore, I'm sure we'll get there, but it will need a lot of work.
So I understand you'll continue in the wind, right?
We will continue investing and looking for opportunities for consolidation, finding different layers of investors, green bonds, different products.
Okay, thank you, Murat. Ebru'cum, actually hearing what you have said about the challenges in the hydro side, I wonder whether you would continue investing in hydro or whether now Limak considers also wind and solar as the alternative investment areas. And also from your point of view, how is your vision for the renewable energy going forward? And what do you think need to change in order to speed up the investments in the renewable energy sector?
After hearing Murat's comments about the wind, I think we should all invest in wind, you know, having the and I hope that we'll not be investing in hydros anymore. So we are looking for other, I mean, we are very happy about our hydro investments, but, you know, I think it seems like wind is nicer. But on the other, on the other side, now all the world is going to the direction of decarbonization, being carbon neutral. So I think, and green bonds and, you know, more responsible shareholders who would be taking care of the future needs or taking care of the climate change issues as well. So this brings us to the fact that we have to be investing in more renewables. This is where the world is going. And all the world is changing, but I think this energy sector is changing at the maximum levels. So as Turkish investors, we have to adapt. So there's no way that we would be out of this wave. And how can we adapt here? There are three things. The Deputy Minister also said, 3 musts in the energy transformation: R&D, innovation, and startups. Yes, there are challenges for the renewables. I mean, all the room knows probably better than me the technical challenges about the grid management, reservoir management, or the cross-border management. That's been, discussing, and some countries like China and Germany are managing better. Maybe we can learn from them. But there's also economical challenges. But how can we address to that? Your question, the answer is basic: innovation. I think as all investors, Turkish investors, we have to be very active in investing the R&Ds and innovations. What we have done for it, as Limak, we have started the Turkey's first energy academy, first energy accelerator program. And I think as a first program, which started 2017, it became very successful. There was 100 applicants. We chose 10 of them. We put them in a camp. We gave them mentorship for more than 150 hours. And now what we have done is we took 5 of them, and they're working with our energy group closely to find out new I would say, solutions. These startups, they don't only need funding. Funding is immense. Now the world is full of liquidity. What they need is they need to learn from your experience, from the investors' experience. So we should give them a platform as investors, Turkish investors, to work together with us. And what we will do from now on is we will selectively continue to invest, especially in wind and solar. As I said, we don't have wind, but we have 2 solar and 1 geothermal plants, and we'll continue to invest. But at the same time, we'll be working with the startups and entrepreneurs in developing innovative solutions, because this is where we think the energy sector will make the difference.
Thank you, Ebru. Yeah, I think that's the future of the market, also to come up with the solutions on the R&D and innovation, especially for the storage side as well. Korkut, we don't want to, in your case, I don't want to talk anymore about feed-in tariff or the new support scheme, but from your investor point of view, what are the other important parameters for an investor to invest in the renewable energy?
Okay, actually most of the issues have been already discussed in the morning session, and my colleagues already addressed some of them. I mean, the most important thing which I personally was involved as well in the last 3 to 4 years is actually the grid congestion issue, especially when the capacities on the renewable side will get bigger and bigger. More solar, more wind, more runoff river hydro, especially after the feed-in tariff periods expire, and because you have, as Turkey, we have also baseload power plants which they have to run continuously, and on top of the lignite ones, nuclear is also coming, as you know. So the transmission line capacity, distribution line capacities, and storage assets will be more and more important. As far as I'm informed, there are some studies already, which is done for the Turkish grid, showing that in some 5 years or more, 6 or 7 maximum, due to unpredictable generation regime, mostly coming from the renewables and also the Masdar plants, there might be difficulty to balance demand and supply when especially the sun shines and wind blows, and you can keep running the Masdar power plants. Therefore, I think we need to assess the vulnerability of our grid and support flexible generation, distributed storage, and grid-level storage technologies. These might be batteries, flywheels, pumped hydro, and we need to start to make investment plans and make sure that those new type of assets can be realized and they can be bankable. Actually, with my personal initiative within our Electricity Generators Association, I'm trying to push the storage legislation in the last 2 years. And when I heard our minister this morning stating that there will be a storage road plan, I remembered the legislation change, which is already a draft, and waiting in EMRA, especially to introduce these battery systems to the grid service, frequency service markets without waiting a long-term plan. This is where we should actually do this transformation in steps rather than having a full-fledged storage environment. Maybe we can start with grid services, which is already feasible, in my opinion, without any subsidy system. And as time passes, these technologies will be also suitable with the price cost reduction for the storage of renewable energy. So I think in this context, of course, there are other obstacles as well, which the administration can support us. For example, the connection approvals for capacity additions for the existing renewable power plants, that can be speeded up because this is the easiest way to boost investment. We all read that there is one company already started a big investment, 70 megawatt, just 2 weeks ago. I think it was on the press. Without any feed-in tariff, they started to invest for the capacity extension. So we need to consider that capacity as well. We need to speed up, simplify permits and license processes. This is a headache always for the renewable projects. From 1 megawatt to 60 megawatt, the same process, same issues. And we need to also maybe try to create some other incentives for the renewable energy to reduce the system connection and distribution fees. Actually, we have done just the opposite in the last couple of years. Another thing which my colleagues already mentioned, when we talk about renewable energy, it's not only investing in a solar or a wind power plant. I mean, we need to look at the whole vertical value chain. I mean, when you talk about renewables, it starts from technology. So, technology includes the production of the machinery and equipment, and also softwares. We need to support, startups. We need to support new technology for the renewable energy, also covering the softwares and artificial intelligence side of it. Another thing, YECAs, I think, is one of the most important issues of our sector. We are all tied up, or we are all committed for YECA's success, for the future of renewable sector in Turkey. But unfortunately, I cannot see the rapid development at that end. And this is actually administration's responsibility to make sure that YECA tenders actually are realized. We need to make sure that the prices, tender prices, are the right prices to be finalized, and the financial commitments of those tenders are the right commitments that would be accepted by the financing world. Also investors also should remake their mind. They should not see these YECA tenders as an option ticket for future. I mean, they win the tender and they wait for 4 or 5 years and then they see whether the prices decreases and they catch a right market opportunity to invest or not invest at that time. I mean, these are, I think, barriers, artificially invented barriers for our market to develop. In addition to that, we are all talking about feed-in tariff, but we need to integrate our markets with other global markets, and we need to replicate emissions-driven market structure to our market as well. We need to introduce maybe, or at least start to discuss carbon tax or green certificates that can be marketed widely together with our adjacent developed markets.
Korkut, if you can wrap up.
Yes, I have to, okay. And the last one would be, again, we should also consider the rare earth materials. I mean, as our minister explained, we have a new policy, sustainable energy and mining. So, especially for the renewable sector, considering batteries and others, we need to have a vertically integrated value chain strategy, also containing the mineral to technology. We have to look at the rare earth materials supply, like graphite or other materials that are used for the technologies.
Well,
Thank you.
actually, based on all the things which you listed, is a long list. It looks
Yes.
like we need to organize another event just focusing on those matters.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Finally, Yousif, I know we don't have too much time, but it is very important to hear your views. What do you think should be the role of the authorities, policymakers going forward? And whether there is really need anymore, or whether it is really critical to have the government as offtake guarantor?
It's risk versus reward. So for me, as an investor, if I have a bankable structure, clear structure, I have credit-worthy guarantee, if I have a long-term offtake, then I'll be more aggressive in the pricing. So it's all depend on what governments and authorities want. They want very aggressive price where we can break records, or they want a short-term pricing, can be a little bit high, but they can bet on future, they can get a better price by the technology evolution in the future. So for me, I need clear structure, I need credit-worthy guarantee, and I need early development works done by the authorities in order to allow me to bid aggressively.
Yeah, I think, yes. Preparation for the tender is very important to make sure that it's a healthy tender and to get the right results out of the tender. Thank you very much to my panelists. I'm sorry, but I don't have too much time, but maybe I'm allowed to take 1 or 2 questions at the maximum in order not to, I don't know if any. It seems no. So I want to thank you very much to my panelists and to yourselves for listening to us just after the lunch and for your patience. Please note that we will not have any coffee break and the next session will start immediately. And our next panel will be integration of intermittent renewable energy sources. And our moderator will be David Livingston. So thank you very much.